Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to learn about scope 1, 2, and 3 greenhouse gas emissions. Before we start, let's just discuss what these greenhouse gases are and what is greenhouse gas effect, right? So we hear a lot about greenhouse gases, and greenhouse gas effect, right? If I talk about the greenhouse gas effect, naturally, we are able to live on our planet Earth because of the GHG effect, right? Because it keeps the temperature in control. Otherwise, it would have been the Earth would have been a lot colder than it is currently, and sort of uninhabitable for human, animal, as well as plant life. So for flora and fauna also. But now, what is happening? It is that it is now getting out of control. It is not completely out of control, but yes, we are getting warmer. You must have, or you may have, most of you, may have heard about global warming, rising temperatures, and most of you may already have experienced in the summers in tropical parts, tropical countries, even in Europe now. We hear a lot about temperatures going north of 40 degrees, so above 40 degrees, which were sort of unheard of 10 years back, 15 years back, right? In Northern Europe countries, also in countries like India, in Southeast Asian countries, in South American countries, even almost a whole of world is experiencing rising temperatures, erratic weather patterns. So uh, rains with I would say very high intensity in very short period of time, less number of rainy days, floods, landslides, then droughts. All these are effects of climate change. All these are effects of, linked directly or indirectly to global warming. So the average temperature has increased over the pre-industrial levels. Now, pre-industrial levels, if I talk about pre-industrial levels, are sort of 200 years back when majority of the world was agrarian, right? So industry started when there's industrial revolution started. We hear about it in history. We learn about it in his history. Industrial revolution. It started in Europe, United Kingdom, and then moved to US, and then came to other countries. Right. So the main. This is the main context of this video. Now, where I live in India, I also experience a lot of erratic weather patterns in the hilly state where I live. But yes, moving to our greenhouse gas effect, the cause mainly is anthropogenic. Natural greenhouse gas effect has already been there since ages, but anthropogenic greenhouse gas effect is what we are causing. We are, the sort of, I would like to say that we are the root cause of this anthropogenic greenhouse gas effect because of the industries, because of our transportation patterns. We're using cars, and I mean, this is just tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of causes, right? So now, what are the greenhouse gases? The most common is our carbon dioxide, which is emitted from burning fossil fuels, mostly coal. Coal is used in electricity generation in most of the countries. In India, majority of our electricity generation is coal based. Then oil is your crude oil, whose the oil products are petrol, diesel, other petroleum products. Petrol and diesel we use a lot in our transportation. Then methane is emitted or released in the atmosphere from agriculture. If you burn, say, agricultural waste in landfills, right? Then we have nitrous oxide, we have hydrofluorocarbons, perfluorocarbons, mainly from refrigeration, and because of these hydrofluorocarbons and perfluorocarbons, there was another protocol, I think Montreal Protocol, which was uh, which happened, and which sort of limited or stopped the usage of HFCs and PFCs in refrigeration. Now we are using other gases, but again with high greenhouse gas warming, global warming potentials, right? So we started taking some steps in this area, and Kyoto Protocol happened. It is an international agreement. It was adopted in 1997, and mainly uh, it was to fight the climate change by limiting or by controlling the emission of these greenhouse gases, right? So these are the six gases. Now I think there are seven gases in the Kyoto Protocol. And then, this Kyoto Protocol happened, other summits happened by UNFCC, UNFCCC. Governments also started taking some steps, and then Paris Climate Agreement happened, right? So Paris Climate Agreement is mostly, COP, Confederation of Parties, 21. So annual COP meeting takes place between different governments. So it happened in 2015. It why it is mentioned is that it's a major announcement happened and it was legally binding, and countries are following it, is that to limit the global average temperature to 1.5, below 1.5 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial level. So for example, if average temperature of the world was 30 degrees pre-industrial levels, to limit the average temperature by 2052, below or up to 31.5 degrees Celsius. So this is just an example, right? So as a result, countries, they submitted their pledges, NDCs, nationally determined contributions, that this is our strategic plan, how we will reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, right? So then greenhouse gas accounting, I would just like to talk about greenhouse gas accounting is the process of measuring, calculating, and tracking an organization. So for corporate point of view, it can be taken up to national level also, government level also, but we are discussing about the corporate. So corporate means a company, an organization, maybe a manufacturing organization, maybe a service organization, right? So measuring, calculating, and tracking an organization's greenhouse gas emissions. Now they are, distinguished as or categorized as scope one, two, and three. There are two standards which are followed widely. First is your greenhouse gas protocol is the mother standard. This is the original standard, and then ISO 14064, right? So greenhouse gas reporting is sharing the emissions data with all the stakeholders. If you Google ESG report or sustainability report of a company, you will get a PDF of the company, and you will, in that report, there will be a section of the scope 1, 2, and 3 greenhouse gas emissions reporting. So, how much of scope 1 emissions happened during the year, how much of scope 2 emissions, how much of scope 3 emissions happened during the year. So, this is your greenhouse gas emissions reporting. Now, scope 1 emissions are the direct greenhouse gas emissions. Definitions are important. Direct greenhouse gas emissions occur from sources that are owned or controlled by the organization, right? So, owned or controlled by the organization means the machinery is owned by the organization. If it is a manufacturing organization, for example, if we take example of a company which is, say, manufacturing cars, right? So there will be, assembly line, manufacturing line. There will be a lot of machineries, a lot of other equipments in the factory owned by the organization or controlled by the organization, in which if they have to, if they have to be used, if they have to run, they will need some sort of fuel to run, or they will need electricity to run, right? So emissions from the fuels, burning of fuels, emissions from the electricity are your greenhouse gas emissions. It is inside the boundary, it is controlled by the organization. Now scope 2 is very specific organization from the use of electricity. Use of electricity means, in our households also we get electricity from the grid, from our electricity provider. Okay, so we get monthly bills. Say you consume 500 kilowatt hours in a month, 500 kilowatt hours. The emissions as a result of consuming those 500 kilowatt hours inside your house will be your scope 2 emissions. Similarly, for a corporate, for an organization, any organization, the usage of electricity results in scope 2 greenhouse gas emission. This is only for electricity or purchased electricity, purchased heating and cooling. If you generate electricity inside your homes through, through your solar panels or through maybe some other sources, mostly solar panels inside the household, or any company they want to purchase, they want to generate electricity through solar, through wind, right? Winter using of wind turbines, then there will be no emission. That's your renewable electricity, so zero emission. Now, scope 3 is any other kind of indirect emission. Scope 2 is also indirect because they're not generated inside your organization boundary. They're coming from somewhere, power generation station to your factory. Again, scope 3 emissions are other, all other kind of different emissions which are indirect, which are not controlled by an organization, but you have, as an organization, influence over those emissions. So there are 15 categories. So, for example, it starts with your purchase of raw materials. If you say manufacture cars, right? You will have to purchase a lot of raw material in terms of components, nuts and bolts, glass, tires, right? Steel, you will have to purchase other materials, seat covers, seats, a lot of materials you'll have to purchase. So emissions in manufacturing those materials will come under category 1 of scope 3. Then those materials will have to be transported to your company through some transportation, so trucks, maybe, right? To trains, trucks, or maybe air fleet, which is not owned by you, which is not controlled by you, which is a third party. That will come under, say, category 3. Now you're using machinery inside your organization. Emissions related to manufacturing of that machinery, right? So some other companies manufacturing those machinery, you are just purchasing it and installing it in your organization. So emissions related to manufacturing of that machinery is the scope. So similarly, there are different categories, right? So for example, you're working in a company and you go for a business travel to some site, other country. That is your business travel, your organization's business travel related emissions. That is your category 6, I think. Then you go to office from home as an employee, then come back to your home. You emit some emissions, right? You go to office by car, maybe, or by a two-wheeler, or you take public transport, right? But that process involves some emissions. So that's your organization scope 3 emission, category 7. So similarly, there are different kind of emissions in these categories, right? So yes, this is the end of the video. Uh, you can know more about the course, the complete course that we are having, and I'll provide the details of the course in which we are learning, and I'm teaching how to calculate all these emissions, how to do the ESG data reporting hands-on, practically, that you would be doing when you start working in an organization. Thank you.